Hi, this is Laura Siddall, just ringing up to make my love song request. Wondering if you guys would be able to play Whitney Houston, One Moment in Time. Thanks very much. Oh, sorry, no, this is the wrong show. This is Cup of Try, isn't it? Oh, shit, sorry. Hi, Helen and Rob. I'm just ringing up to say thanks for the mention last week after my race in Mandra. Love listening to the podcast, so keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Welcome to the Cup of Try Triathlon podcast. We thought we'd go with a different start today as a phone message came through from the wonderful Laura Siddall. What do you think, Els?
I tell you, it certainly made me laugh, but no, this is most definitely the Cup of Try Triathlon podcast and not love songs. Though I think
we like Laura Siddall. She's funny. She's funny.
We're going to get her on in a few weeks, aren't we?
We are, yeah. We're just trying to line up the dates to make it work. I like it. She's got a sense of humour and she plays along with us. That's great. We like people who play.
She wants a bit of Whitney Houston later on, Rob, if you've got that anywhere. If you can, pop it on.
I'm sure I can dig some out of the old CD collection somewhere.
CD? You sure it's not on, vinyl or anything?
Oh, bit of vinyl action. Do you know what I think, Helen? I want to dig this out and have a look. I think I've got a Whitney Houston vinyl.
I knew you would. You see?
Yeah.
I knew.
An original from the early 80s. I want to go and have a look and text you a photo later.
I knew you would. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the message, Laura. It made us most definitely giggle a lot. And you can do the same. All you've got to do is go on to the Oxygen Addict website /podcast, and then you'll see.
Click the box, leave us a message. That's it.
It is as easy
Couldn't
as that.
be easier, could it?
No. So get on it.
Now, the only problem with this is, Helen, as I've found out to my cost, it's open to abuse. I've been having some rather abusive calls over this from ladies getting into icy cold baths who thought they would do it live on air. What's that all about, you lunatic?
Well, didn't you say last week that you wanted someone to record them having an ice bath?
I didn't think anyone would do it, and I certainly didn't think it'd be you lunatic.
Well, obviously I couldn't do it on the little widget gadget thing because it only takes 90 seconds, and my little ice bath recording, you've got to be in the ice bath for longer than 90 seconds, so that wasn't going to work. So I did it on my iPhone and sent it across to you to make you giggle.
Yeah, shall we have a listen? Shall we listen to what you sound like?
Yeah, why not?
Warning, listeners, if you are considering an ice bath, this comes with a health warning from the Cup of Try podcast, men especially. It doesn't sound pretty, even with a lady doing it. I can only imagine that men might do themselves a severe temperature-related injury. So here's Helen's recording of her getting into it. How cold do you reckon it was, Helen?
I reckon it would probably be around 8 degrees.
Oh, golly.
9?
Did it have ice in? Actual ice in?
No, it didn't have ice. What?
Really? You lightweight. Next time I want a big bag of ice from the shop in there as well.
What temperature does cold water come out of the tap at? I have never measured
Pretty
it.
chilly. Yeah.
So anyway.
Pretty chill.
That.
So here we go. Here's the first playback of the Cup of Try official ice bath challenge.
So you might be able to hear that noise. That is the noise of a bath running, but I think it's about deep enough. And the bath water is, let me put my hand in here. Yeah, that is bloody freezing. And I am about to get in it because I've just been for a run, and it was quite a hard run. And I think my legs hurt a little bit. So the plan is to get in here for 5 minutes. I have a warm cup of tea right here. If you can hear, that's a mug. And this is not the most pleasant of things. I need to go and get a hat. So I'm going to run and get a hat. Right, so I have a hat on my head, and let's do this. Shit, that is freezing. Oh my god. Oh crap. Alright, I've got my feet in, and I need to get the rest of me in. This is horrible. So I now need to put the time on for 5 minutes. Oh my god, this is horrible. Right, 5, timer. Okay, go. I'm about a minute in, I think, and I've been sipping on my tea, and I've had to put the tap on again because it doesn't quite cover my thighs. It's bloody freezing, and my feet have now gone numb. Okay, so the first 5 minutes is up. I'm about to get out for a minute, so I need to put my tea down. My tea, I've drunk most of that because it's the only thing that keeps you sort of sane. My hands are white and I literally have goosebumps everywhere, so I need to get out. Okay, so then I get a minute of standing and then I get to go back in for 5 minutes. Okay, the minute is about up, so let the pain recommence. Here we go. It's not quite so bad getting in the second time because you really can't feel anything. It's still bad when the water gets your backside. I said it's not so bad. It's horrible. But I'm kind of shivering. It's really quite cold. Your legs definitely go very numb. My toes went numb first, and then your legs just kind of go numb. And then once you're in, it's not quite so horrendous. I mean, I'm cold, and I'm looking forward to getting in the shower. But I think it must be doing some good because it's not particularly pleasant. But the water is, completely covering my legs. And, they just sort of go a little bit numb. But you can see why everyone does it. Anyway, I'm going to turn it off and just embrace the cold.
There we go. Hells, you're a lunatic, but I love you for it.
Thanks. And I've just had another one.
You're joking?
No. This is 3 in a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how are you feeling? How are you feeling after them?
Really good. Cold, but then you get in the warm shower, so that sorts you out. And your legs just they just go numb. But
I know you're noticing like an increased recovery effect with it.
Well,
I assume you are if you're repeatedly doing it. You're not doing it for the pure kinkiness of it, are you?
No. They definitely feel fresher to go again. So, I've done my long run just this morning, and I know tomorrow I think I've got a 45-minute run, and my legs will feel fresher for sure doing that.
Good stuff.
So, it's sort of trying to keep the legs ticking over for another few weeks before the marathon, and then hopefully no more ice baths and no more running for about 3 weeks.
Time for you to have a little bit of a chill,
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely.
The longest end of season stretch ever for you, this, isn't it? Oh, go on then, I'll just do a marathon.
Well, I kind of had a bit of it. I had a break in September. Got married.
Yeah, you had a break for about 3 days to get married and got right back on it.
Yeah, so no, December is going to be chilled out. So looking forward to it. I had one of those moments this morning, Rob. Checked the flights from Malaga, where we're going to go and do the marathon. And I looked and I thought, am I half asleep there? Bum. No, I'm not. No, that actually says Thursday. We fly on a Thursday. I've only asked for the Friday off.
Oh, no.
It's fine. I've sorted it out. But when you have...
That's good, because I was going to say, whatever you do, don't admit to it on air. Don't leave a trace behind you. If
it's fine.
You're going to have to skip out of work.
I've sorted it out, but I just sort of thought, oh no, this is only like a couple of weeks out, and I most definitely have not booked the Thursday off. But, that definitely says we're flying at 7 a.m.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good. You get a couple of days out in the warm.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, it should be. Now, I'll tell you what, mate, you'd imagine, wouldn't you, that this time of year you'd go to Ironman Arizona and you'd get some nice warm weather.
Yeah, but not this year.
Doesn't look like it worked out that way. This reminds me of the pictures that are up on Slow Twitch, remind me of the track session that you missed on Thursday night of last week when the guys from Knutsford were there doing the laps around and the heavens opened and we were like, oh, well, we've got away with it for half an hour. And we had 5 minutes of the heaviest rain I've ever encountered in my life. It was biblical. The weather went from being just a little bit drizzly to the track being 2 centimetres deep in water, I think, conservatively.
Yeah.
It was just insanity. People looked like they'd literally jumped into the lake in their clothes.
I was so sad to miss that one.
Yeah, I bet you.
Really sad.
Bet you were.
No, the pictures look quite horrific, and it's fine once you're running, but on the bike, heavy rain, I'm not a fan, and it just looks bonkers. But
Well, I think they got away with it on the bike, didn't they? By the look of things.
I think it just started raining on the bike.
Did it?
Yeah.
Just towards the end of the
Yeah.
bike? Okay.
And then it absolutely was bucketing it down, wasn't it? And I think as bad as it is for the athletes, once your shoes are wet, well, they're gone, aren't they? But God, for anyone watching, it would just be miserable.
Yeah, the pictures there look like
brollies.
Bolton on a typical summer's day. They've all got the brollies and the waterproofs, and everyone's wrapped up in thermal blankets and stuff.
Yeah, it looks like...
I tell you what, though, it might have contributed to the slightly speedy times that we saw for sure.
Yeah, really.
Nice to run a marathon in the rain over there.
Oh, I know. It does look it on the photo. It looks like Meredith Kessler's running in Bolton, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty
just
much
doing
does.
IMAN UK.
Should we use that photo as the shot for the podcast? Because bless her cotton socks, it looks wet.
Oh yeah, it looks pretty grim.
Dear.
But anyway, the results, Rob, from Arizona.
Ladies' side first.
Well, yeah. So Meredith Kessler, she had the third fastest swim of the day overall, so including the men as well. Popped out the water in 48:25. And then just went on to absolutely dominate. She finished in 8:44. So, 48-minute swim, 4:42 on the bike, and then she ran a 3:08. Second was Amanda Stevens, again of the USA, who finished in 8:52, and then Julia Gage of Germany in 9:03. And the other one who I've noticed on there, Michelle Vesterby, came fifth, and she was fourth, wasn't she, in Kona, so she just had to validate her slot for Kona next year, so job done.
Yeah, and it looks like she wasn't hanging around on the bike either. What's Chrissy's official Ironman record? Is it 8:35, the official one?
Oh, don't know.
Set at an IM branded one. Because that's pretty darn speedy, isn't it? 4:42 on the bike for Meredith Kessler. That's got to be one of the fastest bikes of all time.
It's flying, isn't it? And, she had a really, really bad Kona this year. So it's good that she could put that behind and show, bounce back.
Massive sort of validation of the fitness there for her, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. And over on the men's side, finally a win for young Lionel Sanders, which is absolutely brilliant to see. People have been following his story, a kind of recovered drug addict who's made good by driving himself hard with the training.
Yeah.
He's always been a bit weaker on the swim, and that's played out here. 54-minute swim compared to the top boys in sort of 48, but he's maybe only sort of 5 or 6 minutes down off the big main pack. Yeah. He's then gone out to ride 4:13:38. Now, we knew he could ride. He's obviously pushed himself really hard at Kona as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because he was top 15 at Kona.
He finished just behind Joe, didn't he?
14. He did, yeah. They had a bit of a ding-dong on the run, those two, apparently. So 4:13 on the bike, and then closed with a 2:47.
Amazing.
So, so 7:58 to go into the magical 8-hour mark there. Wow. A bit of a history of people going under 8 hours at Arizona, but that is a good performance for someone who's swimming 54 minutes. Really, really good. Brent McMahon in 8 hours flat 57, and TJ Tolkson took it out in third. Now, Andy Starkowitz went nuts on the bike again and rode 4:03. And apparently passed out during the run. Somebody found him. Yeah, there's a tweet I saw. Now, whether it's a genuine passed out, but he said somebody sort of brought me round on the run, and he sort of staggered over to finish with only, in inverted commas, a 3:09 marathon. But to go 8:05 after having a little snooze on the run isn't too shabby, is it?
No.
Imagine being Lionel Sanders, right? You've biked 4:13, and you get the notice that you are, what would you have been there, 15 minutes down off the bike? Yeah. That's insane, isn't it?
But that's like what Rinny did in Kona last year, didn't she? Was she 14 minutes back?
Yeah,
shows
came back all that way.
Strength, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Impressivo. And now there was another Ironman race going on, wasn't there, this weekend?
There was. I'll tell you what, though, just before we go there, let's mention British and Irish interest. We'll say Irish interest here. Brian McChrystal, you might remember he broke the Irish record with an 8:41 over in Barcelona.
Yeah.
He went 8:30 flat. So 5 weeks later, and he has lobbed off 10, 11 minutes off his run time. His other splits were identical. So he's gone 8:30 for the fastest ever iron distance race. So 11 minutes off his own record 5 weeks later. That's great, isn't it?
That is impressive. Where did he finish, Robin? Did he take his...
10th, I think, overall, or 11th overall.
That's
So
good going.
good work, mate. Very impressive stuff. Now let's go. Come on. Let's go from the rainy coldness of Arizona to the crazy heat of Ironman Malaysia.
Yeah, which was really, really bonkers heat, wasn't it? Like 40-odd degrees, I think.
Yeah, they get proper Kona weather over there, don't they? And
very humid.
It's, was this the one that Chrissy won? Did she win Malaysia as her first breakthrough race?
No, it was over in
Taiwan.
Yep. Yeah.
There we go. Similar sort of heat and humidity, though, so that's always a marker for people who can race well here.
Yeah.
And on the British interest side, it looks like it was a fantastic race for our man Harry Wiltshire.
Absolutely. So he finished third, and if anyone has been racing lots this year, Harry Wiltshire has been racing lots, especially recently, because he did Barcelona, didn't he?
He did. He also did Wales.
Yeah. And I'm sure there might have even been another one thrown in there. So he finished third, and up until 22k on the run, the top three were running, like the three of them in a bunch. It was really, really, really close. And then top two pulled away, and Harry finished, like 3 minutes behind them at the finish line?
It's closer than that, mate. They were running together at the 35k
Were they
mark.
still at 35?
Yeah. 35k they were still there, so it was all settled over the last 4 miles. That would be great to see the video of that, wouldn't it? It really would be. 3 guys having a proper ding dong like that.
I guess it helps if you are running shoulder to shoulder, it just drags you along, doesn't it? And then it's a case of who's going to break first.
Yeah. It's difficult racing when you're so tired at the end, and each one's pushing each other. So a proper iron war for the 3 of them there. So Mike, I'll go on and say it, Igros.
Yep, sounds good.
Am I right? Mike Igros from Switzerland in 8:52.02. Fredrik Cronenberg from Sweden in 8:52.12. So only 10 seconds between them.
It would have.
And Harry in 8:55. So wow, good racing, guys.
Impressive, isn't it?
It sure is. And over on the ladies' side.
Yeah, have you got it in front of you?
I have.
Yeah, go for it.
Diana Riesler took it out in 9:37. Gurutz Frades of Spain in 9:49. I probably massacred the pronunciation there. My apologies. And you never guess who's in third.
Yeah, I did see this. A certain 48-year-old.
48-year-old Natasha Badman. She's an absolute legend, isn't she?
It's just she did a
9:54.
Finished off with a 3:30. Just
I'd love to see an interview with her somewhere. Someone's got to be able to get access and talk to her, because she rode 5:14 on the bike, so she is still really fast. Only a few minutes off the fastest bike split. I wonder whether she's doing it in terms of looking to qualify for Kona again in the future, because obviously she's of the standard, isn't she?
Yeah, totally.
She gets a couple of second places in an Ironman race. She's going to be going to Kona again at 48 years old. So
such a good story, isn't it?
It's great, and she'd be in anyway. She's previous multi-time winner. Was she 5-time winner, 4-time winner?
Something like that.
So she'll get to race whenever she wants as an age grouper, but she obviously wants to go back and start with the pros. Good for her.
I don't know why. At some point, do you think your body would just be? Surely you'd just be done with it. But then maybe not.
Maybe she just enjoys exercise. That's the thing. If you love to swim, bike, and run, it's like Dave Clamp.
Yeah.
He just loves swimming, biking, and running. So,
it is.
Yeah.
It is very, very impressive. And if you can make enough money to keep on flying around the world and doing races in cool places, then
why not race pro? Exactly. She'll have picked up a few $1,000s. It'll have paid for a flight and hotel and a few quid in the pocket as well.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Caroline Livesey unfortunately didn't finish, did she?
She didn't know. The tweet said she had a hideously torrid time in the heat, decided to call it a day after she'd walked for a long way on the marathon. So sounds like the heat cracked her there.
Yeah. So hopefully
lucky.
Next one can come back stronger at the next one and everything.
It's got to be really hard, hasn't it, leaving November in this country and arriving in 38, 40 degrees heat and humidity over there.
Yeah, totally. It must be really, really difficult. I would struggle, definitely, for sure.
Yeah. My friend the other day was trying to badger me into entering Lanzarote with him next year for his 50th. Simon, you're an evil man if you're listening.
And?
Well, that's the reality, isn't it? You're going to arrive in Lanzarote and just get absolutely cooked because unless you can be there for a week and a half beforehand.
That's it.
But I would melt.
Yeah.
Like if I tried to race 2 days after arriving in Fuerteventura, there's no chance.
No,
it takes me a week to get to the point where I can do any kind of running at all.
Yeah, totally. And you've got to get used to obviously the winds and all that kind of stuff out there. It's not easy just to turn up and do it, is it?
Yeah, definitely. That being said, Simon, if you're splashing out the cash for a nice trip for your 50th, and you pay me out there, I'm in, buddy. That pretty much goes for anyone listening, actually.
If you want Rob to come and do a race with you, just pay for him and he'll be there.
Joe Friel does that on his website, I saw the other day.
What?
He does like his top level coaching package. He'll come to races with you and he'll like be there and give you support and pump your wheels up and stuff.
But you have to pay.
Like $2,000 a month.
You have to pay for your coach, mechanic, all-round guru to be there with you.
Big time. Who knows though, man? If you've got the cash, if you're sitting there and you're a millionaire and you need the support, then my wife would certainly be more than happy for me to pay for somebody to come out with me if I had the money, rather than dragging her around places. I think there's a lot of iron widows and widowers out there who thankfully do the same thing and greenlight the cash, wouldn't they?
Oh, I would happily be paid to go and be an official cheerleader.
Race caddy.
Yep, like a golf caddy, but just out on the race course. I could, easily do that.
I'm seeing a gap in the market.
Exactly.
Swim just in front of the guy, like that guy did to Lionel Sanders in Kona. You could ride next to them, inverted commas, and then carry the water bottles on the run.
Totally, I'm there.
Iron Caddy. Sign us up. Anyone's interested?
Ironcaddy.com. Rob and Helen.
Somebody's gonna patent it, Hells, if we don't.
Yeah, there we go.
All of which leads us nicely into this week's interview, which is with the amazing Rachel Joyce. I'm sure she needs no introduction. She's just recently finished second place at Kona, and over recent years she's had a second and a third at Kona. So we had a great chat with her all about her progression from talented age grouper and her start in triathlon all the way through to today being one of the world's most successful iron distance racers. Rachel Joyce, welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. How on earth are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. It's a little early here, but I've taken my dog Maggie out for a walk, and life is pretty good.
So, what time is it where you are at the moment?
It's 7:30, so not super early, but
it's early enough to have some idiot rabbiting in your ear trying to interview you on a podcast. That's for sure, isn't it?
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. It's nice. I always enjoy doing podcasts, especially when they're back in the UK, because I kind of like to keep in touch with the UK tri scene too.
Yeah, so listen, let's start with that then. Are you now based over in America pretty much full time, or do you still divide your time up between America in the summer and I know you spent some time in the Canaries in the winter in the past?
No, I live full time in the US. We moved over. We came over here in 2012. Oh, sorry. No,
it's okay. Bless you.
We came over in 2012 just to see what it was like, and we spent about 3 months training here. And then in the beginning of 2013, I'd say since then I've been living here full time, and we actually bought a house last year, so we're here for the medium long term, I guess.
Fantastic. And does it suit your training a bit more living over there? Is the climate more conducive than possibly the freezing rain we're experiencing over here at the moment?
Boulder in Colorado, it definitely has the 4 seasons, but what's different here to being, say, when I was based in London is that it's much drier, so we have more days of sunshine, so it can get extremely cold. And over the winter I do my fair share of indoor trainer rides and treadmill runs, but I think the ability to ride outside, there's more of it because of the sunshine. And even if it's cold, if the sun's out, it feels much warmer than it actually is. And it's
just generally good for your all-round mental health and the feeling of being in the beautiful outdoors.
Yeah, no, exactly. And just the environment here has been really good for training. And I'd got to a point where I was spending more and more time on training camps, and I absolutely love Lanzarote, and I love Fuerteventura, and I kind of actually miss being there in the kind of January, February time. But it was also getting quite tiring living out of a suitcase for much of the year, and so that was part of the reason I decided to kind of look for somewhere where I could base myself out of kind of 12 months of the year.
Yeah, and obviously Boulder has become, certainly over the last 10 years, the sort of go-to mecca, hasn't it, for pro triathletes to live, and there's an incredible sort of wealth of depth of talent over there at the moment. How do you, I mean, I've got to say, I'm insanely jealous because I've always wanted to visit Boulder ever since, I don't know whether you'll remember this, but Steve Cram having his adverts for Kellogg's cornflakes that he used to advertise when he was running through the hills above Boulder.
Oh, I don't remember that, but I'm going to Google that to see, because I was
so it was like back in the sort of mid to late 80s when he was at his peak. I think it was called Kellogg's Start or something like this, and it had him sort of running through the hills above Boulder, and I would read about how everybody would go there to altitude train, and it's always been the place that I've thought I'd love to go there one day. And it just looks like the perfect place to live because you're surrounded by the most stunning scenery, as well as having, the great people to train with and the altitude as well.
Yeah, no, it is a beautiful place to live, and I always look forward to coming home because it is such a nice place to live. Having said that, I do miss things about England, and it's always nice. I make sure I get back a couple of times a year, and I must be getting nostalgic in my old age, but I kind of I'm definitely eyeing up a race or two to do in the UK next year, because that's where I did my first pro race in the UK, and I do prefer the warm weather races, but the draw of doing a home race in the UK is kind of outweighing my like for hot races. So I'm going to take a punt. I'm not sure which race yet, but I'll definitely be doing a race in the UK next year.
Breaking news. That's fantastic. That's going to be my next question. Are we going to get you back over here to race at one of the races? Do you think it would be a half distance, or might you even tend towards one of the full distance races over here?
At the moment, I think it's probably more likely to be a half distance.
We can't tempt you to Bolton just yet, can we not?
I've heard good things about that race, and I'm not ruling it out, but I think it's more likely to be the Staffordshire 70.3, the new venue for 70.3.
Yeah. That was a great race as well last year.
Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of looking at, but we'll see. Interesting
times. So listen, this leads us in nicely, really. You just mentioned your first pro race. Let's talk just a little bit about your progression in triathlon and the decision that you ended up sort of taking to turn pro. Now, I've been doing a little bit of reading around about you behind the scenes. So you originally started out working as a lawyer, didn't you? And sort of had a few really good races, went to the 2006 70.3 championships where you won your age group. And from there, was it kind of I think I'll have a go and see if I can make it as a pro kind of thing?
Sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. You go from there, please.
I entered a bunch of, I did my first half Ironman, and then it was around that time that there were murmurings that there was going to be this 70.3, UK 70.3, which would have qualifying spots for a new event, the 70.3 World Championships. And so that's what I really set my eyes on. And that race actually went pretty badly because I think the first half Ironman I did kind of lulled me into a false sense of security. And I found it not easy, but everything went right and I felt good all day. And I was like, oh, this is what a half Ironman is about. The UK 70.3 was nothing like that, and I was ill prepared. I didn't have enough nutrition. I was cold on the bike, and I really rolled into T2 feeling like I was a long way back in the field and thinking, well, I'm not going to get that one qualifying spot. But there was a lesson in, like, you have to just kind of keep moving forward because you never know what's going to happen. And I think in the last mile or two, I moved back into first place in my age group, and that was my spot to the 70.3 World Championships. And because it was a September race, I had a whole year to prepare for the World Championships. So I did make changes in going into 2006. I got a coach, Richard Jones, who's
yeah, I know Richard. He won the first ever race I did. He won the 2002 Lamberis 70.3.
Yeah.
Half Ironman as it was at the time. So yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah. So I learned a lot from him, and my training got much more consistent. And I had a really good year, like leading into the 70.3 World Championships, and I was like on this winning roll. And obviously, I love the training and I love the friends that I made, but it's also a really nice feeling to be winning. So I kind of went into the World Championships pretty buoyed up. But I always have a fear. I'm never complacent because I always know that there are people that are training really hard out there. And it was very similar to the 70.3 World Championships. I didn't really have any idea where I was coming, but it turned out that I took the lead about a mile from the finish line in that, and then won my age group there. And that was really when I went to the awards in Clearwater, and I was over the moon to have won my age group, but I was looking at the stage at the pro women who was stood on the stage, and I was like, I really want to have the opportunity to race those women just to see, am I like even in the same ballpark? And that was what really motivated me to kind of make the change to go part-time in my job as a lawyer, and then ultimately start racing professionally.
I see. And at what point did you decide you were going to sort of step up and have a crack at the full Ironman distance? Was that 2008?
Yeah, it was 2008, because having made that decision after Clearwater, I really had a pretty disastrous 2 years. And, I was pretty close to like calling it a day and on my dreams of being a professional triathlete, because I'd been injured, I'd been ill, and I'd not really, I think I did one race where I, was racing for Great Britain in the ETU European Long Course Championships, and I came dead last. And that was,
oh really? Oh, bless you.
It was pretty humbling, and I was like, maybe I'm just like living in cloud cuckoo land. And that it really did, my confidence was pretty low, and I was like, I feel like I've been stalling my career for long enough. Maybe it's time I go back to working full time. But I decided in 2008, having been injured more, I was like, okay, just do an Ironman, because that had always been kind of something that I wanted to kind of tick off my bucket list. And I was like, just train, enjoy the training and enjoy the process, and don't put any pressure on yourself going into that race. Just do the Ironman, and then you can go back to work. So that's what I did. I entered Ironman Florida, and I'd lined up work. I did the race, and then I had a few days holiday, and then I went straight back to work. And I had lined up work to go straight back into the office to start earning some money. But thankfully, it wasn't like an amazing, you hear of some amazing debut Ironman performances, but I came fifth. And to me, that was just enough of a carrot to say, okay, don't give up on the triathlon dream just yet. You can maybe build on that fifth. And I'd missed out on a Kona spot one place. So I was like, okay, go home.
So yeah, you're not a million miles away in your head there, are you?
Yeah.
Straight away.
So I went back to London, and I worked full time, saved every penny that I made in the 8 weeks leading up to Christmas, and then decided to have another crack at it at the beginning of 2009.
Great stuff. And I mean, from there, really, history's gone on to prove that you definitely made the right decision by heading on to towards a life as a professional triathlete, hasn't it? It's interesting to hear you say that, though, that even at that point, it could have come down to a decision to go either way as to whether to go back to work or whether to carry on with a career as a pro triathlete. And that really is the tipping point where, I mean, just to sort of sum up your results from there on, in 2009 you were second at Lanzarote and third in South Africa and went on to take sixth at Kona. So that decision to kind of stick it out, as you said, really was the breakthrough year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And I was kind of, I think Kona in 2009 is still that, like, was a massive, it's still one of the results that I kind of get goosebumps when I think about how I felt, because I may have said, oh, I would love to go top 10, but in reality, I didn't believe that I was a caliber of athlete that could get top 10 there. I was a bit of I felt like an outsider to the professional triathlon world. I didn't really feel like I belonged. I got completely psyched out in the week leading up to Kona because everyone looked faster, fitter, leaner, as if they knew what they were doing in Kona. Whereas I just felt like I was kind of, I don't know, I was kind of a wannabe. But
it's hilarious to hear you say this because you're sort of like one of the greatest female athletes in the world, and everyone I've ever spoken to about Kona says, I got to Kona and I didn't feel like I fit in, and even you feel like this, so that's really heartening for everybody else listening.
And I think the only saving grace was, like, I almost completely psyched myself out in that week, but then I was like, okay, racing is racing. Nothing matters when that gun goes off, and I can control my race, and racing is a massive equalizer. The form books and the statistics go out the window, and it's just you out there going as fast as you can. So, I mean, still, when I think I came off the bike in about fourth position, and I was like, really, I'm in fourth position, and then my run's improved a lot since then, but I was like, okay, now this is where everyone's going to come and overtake me. But I kind of stayed focused on myself and just made sure I didn't have a brilliant run, but it was the best run I'd had today. I think I knocked about 10 minutes off my best marathon time and finished up sixth. And I was in disbelief for weeks after that race, going, really? And then honestly, I almost didn't take confidence from that performance. I actually went into 2010 thinking, oh, it was just a fluke. A lot of people had a bad day, and you've got to try and back this up. Can I back it up? And it was funny. It was almost it was a lesson.
It almost sounds like it put more pressure on you for having finished sixth than helped you almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot, but then I did think going into 2010, I was like, oh, yeah, I still had a lot of questions about whether I could build on that performance. But luckily I didn't let that swamp me, and I just kind of got down to business of training and getting back to racing.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I've laid out your results in front of me here because that's kind of how my little mind works. And progression, really, it's amazing to look at your results in Kona. So 2009 you were fifth. In 2010 in 2009 you were sixth. Then you were fifth in 2010. You were fourth in 2011. 2013 you were second. In 2014 you were third, and in 2015 you were second again. So it's been this gradual progression all the way through, year on year, of just that slight improvement through the field. Have you, or did you get to kind of a tipping point where you thought, okay, I really belong here now, and I am now in a chance of a win every time I race? Or has that tipping point still not really happened in your head?
No, I definitely think that a big change for me was, I think in 2011 I came fourth, and then I went on to win ITU World Long Course title. And then I really was like, okay, you do belong and you are a contender. And that's something that my coach and I at the time, Matt Dixon, we kind of worked on a lot to kind of get that belief. And I had a really good 2012. And, had I not been ill going into 2012, I think I did have 2012 was when my mindset switched to, I just want to do well here. It'd be nice if I could, get on the podium too. I want to win this thing. And I think since 2012, it was a tough year because in the end I was just surviving out there. But 2013, I kind of went back and I was like, yep, I'm going for the win.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think you will never, and one thing I've realized is you will never win unless you believe you can win, because, your mind is a massive tool in any sporting event or in anything. And if your mind's not backing what your body can do, it just won't happen.
Oh, that's fascinating to hear you talk about that. The fact that really, I mean, it's obvious looking back, and hindsight's always 2020, but the results are fantastic all the way back across the last 8 years. But it's when you've had that mindset shift that you've really stepped forward from being like a top tier pro to one of the 2 or 3 people who could potentially win at Kona. Would you mind talking a little bit about the work that you did with Matt Dixon sort of mentally? What kind of things did you do that helped really change your mindset? Because I think that's something we can all learn from.
We didn't necessarily sit down and say, we didn't have like specific sessions to kind of make sure I was in the mindset. But I think it would be early in the year, we would talk about Kona and would talk about how I was going to prepare for it. And he was very good at getting me to say, actually say out loud, I want to win Kona. And now I can say that pretty in a relaxed, it means a lot to me, but I can say it. But in 2011, I would never have said that. And in 2012, I still found it difficult to say that out loud. But it got me comfortable with the idea of this is my goal in the sport. And, the more I said it out loud to another person, then, the belief, it was something that, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but it kind of, saying it makes it more real rather than kind of whispering it. Yeah, sure. I'd kind of like to win this race. Say it. The next time you say it, it's like, yeah, I want to win this race. And then the next time it's stronger again. And, it's like admitting to yourself, yeah, this race means a lot to me and I do really want to win it. And then when you realize you really want something, then the whole year you can kind of, when you're having bad days or good days, you can go, well, I want to win this race. And so it's a motivator to kind of get the most out of yourself in training.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Which one of your races at Kona do you think has been your best sort of all-round performance? Which one are you most proud of as you look back?
Different races always take different things from it, but I still think that my race in 2013 as a performance, I think going sub 9 and I think that in terms of performance was probably my best race in Kona. I think this year, I always think when I look back at this year's race, at the time when, I was running down the finishing chute, I was over the moon and really happy with my race and I think that was partly because I made a mistake early on in the bike and I almost, at times, the part of the race which I've relied on to put me in a winning position, which is the bike, I was back in 12th place at points and 12 minutes off the leader, the whole front pack. And it would have been easy for me to say, right, that's it, this Kona's not working. But one of the things that I take away from that race is that I held it together and I came through and I ran up to second place, which when you're used to the race playing out in a certain way, and I'm used to being near the front or at the front of the race coming off the bike, and to be not in that place, but keep my head and run through to second. That's where I think that's why I was so happy on the finishing shoot. Obviously now when I look back at it, I'm like, okay, it was a good race, but I'm kind of kicking myself. I don't think it was my best ever race. I think I didn't bike the first half of the bike course particularly well, and I'm a racer, and so the fact that I wasn't in that front group to kind of react to moves, it kind of just irks me a little bit when I think about the race. But I think that's racing, where what makes us all competitive is that we're never completely satisfied with a race, and there's always bits where you're like, oh, if I just hadn't done that, what would have happened? And it's the race is the race. I wasn't in that group. I couldn't react to the change, but I came second. So it was.
Well, here's an interesting question for you then. Do you think that, obviously, because I'm presuming your ride was more about sort of pacing to your own internal ability, and it's more of an even-paced effort than if you were trying to race people at the front, do you think that possibly helped your run in the fact that maybe it saved your legs a little bit more?
I mean, I think it definitely meant I had a much smoother, there were less peaks than in my race, and that does help, because I think the more close to, the more even your ride, the better. But now when I look back and I can kind of look at my power file, I can definitely see there were parts where training suggests I could have ridden part of that first half harder, not necessarily with peaks, but I could have ridden it faster.
Yeah.
So.
And I suppose that the big difference is as well, if you're riding for sort of 5 hours, your mental mindset is sort of saying, I'm behind where I should be for 5 hours, rather than if you're riding up with the group, your mental mindset is all about feeling that you're racing other people for 5 hours. So maybe there's a big mental component of that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I mean, I do feel like one thing I handled mentally quite well is it's easy if you realize you made a bit of a mistake to kind of get completely hung up on that, and that will really impact. That could, send you into a really negative spiral. I was quite good at like, okay, that's happened, now just get on with the rest of the race. So I didn't kind of spend the first 90 kilometers thinking, I wish I was in that group. Because that wasn't going to help anything. I just got back to, racing my race.
Oh, well, that's an interesting mental strength in itself that I think a lot of us really struggle with, is that not getting caught in the mental spiral of thinking things are terrible when things are not going the way we want. So that's definitely something that we can make notes of and think, right, be more like Rachel Joyce with this one, for sure. Looking forward, who do you think your big competition is going to be for 2016? Who are the people you've got marked down to think, right, these are the people I need to be really competing with at Kona?
I mean, without doubt, Daniela Reef is on fire, and her 2015 was.
She had an amazing year, hasn't she?
And the way she dominated both the 70.3 and the Ironman World Championships it's really impressive. And so she's marked herself out as the one we're all, chasing. Having said that, I think Rinny, I hated hearing that she'd been involved in an accident in race week, and I never want to see any of my competition having to withdraw,
because something bad's happened to them, right?
She'll be fired up, and she'll want to get that title back next year. So I'm sure, as always, she's going to be one to watch. And then there's a lot of other people, Angela Nath. It was really bad luck that she got injured just before the race, but she's shown that she's a real athlete. And I think Susie Cheetham, really impressive. I mean, her 70.3 performance was really impressive because she got a drafting penalty, or she got some kind of penalty, but she still got into I can't remember, 8th or 7th in the world
Yeah, I think she was 7th, wasn't she?
Fed up with a 6th place, and I think I kind of see she's on this upward trajectory, and I think she'll be back, and we'll see a lot of good things from her next year.
Yeah, now interesting that, because we've got Susie on the podcast next week, hopefully, if things go to plan. So I'm sure she'll love to hear that you're tipping her for the top for the future. That'd be lovely for her to hear. You've obviously had a couple of really big battles with Mirinda Caffery. How does it feel when you're out on the course? And, you know, quite often in the past, you've been in a position of, as one of the ladies Uber bikers, you're right out there in the front of the field. Does it play on your mind at all as you're running, this thought that Mirinda's run so quick, or do you entirely try and put yourself in your own space, in your own head?
Yeah, I don't think about, I mean, obviously I'm aware, I'm completely aware of what her run is like. But during a race, so say in Roth, I wasn't thinking about, I was really focused on me going as fast as I can in the race, because that keeps me relaxed, and if I'm relaxed, I'm running better. So yeah, I'm running as fast as I can because I want to win the race, but I'm not running. Yeah. You know, I think if you start thinking you're being chased, you just tense up, and it's a bad scene.
Yeah, well, I've often wondered that. It's how is it for you out in the course in Kona? Are people out there giving you splits and people shouting distances and gaps, or do you have a motorbike there telling you splits, and are you aware of it, or is it just you're in your own zone and you're trying to do your own race?
On the bike, on the bike and the run, we have a spotter who is giving splits for the top 10 women. So you do have an idea of who's coming through and what the gaps are. Obviously, there's always a time lapse. So, you know that was a time lapse when she took it, but that could have been like 20 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago. And people on the course do give you splits, but I'm always, unless it's someone like in my team, I'm reluctant, or someone that I trust. You know, people have the best intentions, but you could get all sorts of splits. And so you never, yeah. And also, you listen to the splits for sure. And, but one of the good things about Ironman is anything can happen. And that's why you always, no matter if it looks like the leader is like, even when Daniela was, you know, over 10 minutes ahead of me, I'm still thinking this is an Ironman, anything can happen, just go as fast as you can, because something could happen on that way back from the energy lap. And that's the same, like I'm always aware that someone could be running through really strong from behind, and there's no complacency. You just have to keep pushing right to the end. Yeah,
interesting. Okay. So listen, moving direction a little bit, I wanted to get your views on, I know you were involved in the organisation Tri-Equal, and I wanted to get your views on the movement behind the idea of trying to get 50 women and 50 men on the start line at Kona, rather than the current situation of it being 35 women and 50 men.
Yeah, I am one of the founding members of Tri-Equal, and we're a group of people who we came together because we kind of found each other via like social media and the racing scene, and we realized we were all like, why are there only 35 women in Kona and 50 men? Why is this? And we kind of thought, okay, let's come together, and this is something we can this is something we can try and address and hopefully change in the future. And personally, I want to make sure we have equal numbers in Kona, and ultimately that might not be 50, it might be a smaller number. But one thing we're very clear on in Tri-Equal is that we're not looking, we want 50 women and 50 men. We don't want to be saying we want equality to be achieved by taking spots away from the men, because, you know, we don't want to be, that may be considered like a punishment to the men in order to achieve equality. So that's why we're really like driving the 50 men and 50 women. And I feel strongly about it, and for many reasons. I think, you know, equality I just believe in equality effectively. And I think if you have an inequality at the very highest level of the sport, it sends out the wrong message to women who might want to do an Ironman, or to, kids watching the Ironman and they see there are fewer women than men. Does that mean that this is more of a men's sport? Aren't women strong enough to do this sport? And I think that's not the case. And I also think the professional women should have an equal opportunity to race at the World Championships. And that there's the actual experience of racing there, but also the opportunity to represent their sponsors on the biggest field, the biggest
Yeah,
race.
it's really the only way that the female pro side is going to grow as much as the men's have, is if they've got the opportunity in an equal way to be represented in front of the eyes of the media at the world's biggest stage, really, isn't it? And something that's always annoyed me a little bit is why the questions in the press always seem to be aimed at the members of Tri-Equal to say, well, why should it be equal? Rather than it being the other way around. And why are the questions not being levelled at the organiser of the race saying, can you explain why it's not equal? It seems to me that it's you're being asked to sort of justify your position when actually your position makes the most sense in the world.
Yeah, precisely. And one thing that I find very frustrating is that the arguments for continuing this inequality seem to be based on insulting the women's field. And I think if you the women's field isn't as strong, if we're doing the women a favour by having fewer women, because otherwise we're degrading the women's race. And I find it extremely patronising that you've got a man telling us that it's for our own good. We're adult women. I think we're quite capable of deciding what's in our best interest.
Yeah, it's very sort of patriarchal, isn't it, that? Well, let me tell you the reasons why you're wrong. Oh dear, well I hope it gets sorted out soon. It's something that I don't think has any place belonging in sport in the modern era, really, and it's good on you guys for getting involved and getting that sort of message out there, really. So listen, just to tie it up, I'm aware I've taken up a lot of your time first thing in the morning when you've got lots of things to do. If you were going to be giving one piece of advice to age groupers out there about their training, what piece of advice would you give them from all the experience you've had?
This isn't a very glamorous piece of advice, but it's something that I recently said to my sister, who's training for her first Ironman at the moment, and it's consistency is far, far more important than knocking out one big day or one big week. So whenever you're training, don't try and it's easy to get carried away, but always think, can I do this again next week? Can I do this again next month? Because one of the beautiful things about Ironman and long distance triathlon is it rewards consistent hard work. And so I think doing a little, maybe doing 5% less, but being able to do it over, the 12 weeks building into a race is much more important than, getting one 30-hour week and then having to take the next 4 days off. Can I give 2 pieces of advice?
You absolutely, yeah, keep them coming.
Have training buddies, because in many respects, Ironman it's quite an isolated, it can be quite an individual sport. But if you have training partners, or you can get friends or family involved in your training, it makes it much more enjoyable, and it also keeps the motivation up, especially when we're approaching winter. If you arrange to go riding with friends, then you're more likely to get out if the conditions aren't ideal than if you were going to go and do it on your own. And that's definitely something I really enjoy. I joined the club when I first got into triathlon, and that's what kept me going on those Sunday rides, come rain or shine.
And that's probably what's given you the work ethic that's ended up with you being world champion and knocking on the door of winning Kona a couple of times, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Well, listen, Rachel, thank you ever so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on, especially as it's so early where you are. Everybody in Great Britain's been rooting for you at the World Championships and will continue to do so. And just speaking from my point of view, it'd be great if you could get back and race in the UK at one of our local races over here, and we could get to see you perform in Great Britain again.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I've got nieces and nephews, and I'd love it if they could be part of my cheer squad.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Loads of little Joyces cheering you on.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, listen, thank you ever so much for coming on, and we wish you all the best for the future, and I hope we can have you on again sometime in the future when we talk to you as Kona champion finally.
That would be nice.
Speak to you soon.
Now, Rob, I was going to say that a couple of things. If anybody is listening and you want to give us a review on iTunes, please do. Again, just look for Cup of Tri, give us a review, and that really, really helps us.
Be appreciative of that as well. You could also support us on the old Patreon website. There's a link you can click on auctionaddict.com/podcast. Donate £2 a month to support the podcast and keep it running. That'd be awesome. And you can also help us out by supporting our sponsors. So if you're looking for coaching or you're looking for training plans, head on over to auctionaddict.com again. Drop me an email and I'll do whatever I can to help you. And you can also visit our sponsors, raceforce.co.uk, using the code COT10. You can get 10% off any of their packages to take you to big races next year, whether you want to send your bike lovingly wrapped up hanging in the back of their magnificent van, or if you want to get yourself a 3 or 4 day holiday all included, picked up from the airport, taken to the hotel, driven around, taken out and shown the bike course. It's the next best thing to race caddy, isn't it, Hells?
Yeah, totally. And we saw the lovely Kate the other day. She's on fine form. So if you do go with Raceforce, you will be smiling.
Yeah, she came for kicking in the pool, didn't she, for a bit of swim coaching?
Yeah, it was great. It was great fun. So definitely check out raceforce.co.uk.
There you go. Right, so that is all the time we've got for this week. Thanks very much for listening. Until next week, I've been Coach Rob Wilby.
And I'm Helen Murray.
You've been listening to the Cup of Tri Triathlon podcast.